Our origins lie in the mists of Africa's past. Apes and humans are both primates and share the same ancestors. Yet evolution has followed many winding paths and blind alleys during the millions of years that separate the first primates from ourselves. Can we see our own beginnings in the gaze of the gorilla? The best place to peer into the dawn of the primate line is the island of Madagascar, where the modern descendants of the earliest primates still lived in splendid isolation. The lemurs are descended from the first evolutionary experiments that were also to give rise to the apes over 50 million years ago. Just because they have been around a long time doesn't mean they are primitive. Many are highly specialized. These wide-eyed forest animals are nocturnal insect hunters. The aye-aye is the most specialized of them all. Madagascar has no woodpeckers, and the aye-aye has adapted to exploit the vacant niche. It mainly feeds on grubs beneath tree bark, but its sharp incisors enable it to gouge holes in bamboo and use its long, thin middle finger to scrape the pith from inside. The aye-aye's incisors are continually growing to allow for constant wear. These same techniques can also be used to reach the milk from unripe coconuts while they are still on the bough. The aye-aye is one of the rarest lemurs, driven close to extinction by human superstition. Many have been killed because they are thought to bring bad luck. These ghostly voices belong to the Indris, the largest of the surviving lemurs. These calls help to keep the family together and defend its territory. Unlike the aye-aye, the Indris feed mainly on leaves. They pull branches towards them with their hands, equipped with a thumb that can touch the tips of the fingers. This opposable thumb is unique to primates. Because of its isolation and unique vegetation, the lemurs of Madagascar are only adapted to a very narrow range of conditions. Chifakas live among the Didiera forests in the dry south of the island. Chifakas are particularly threatened by the destruction of these unique forests for fuel and agriculture. Every branch is armed with cactus-like thorns. They have evolved the ability to leap from tree to tree without injury. Like most of the larger lemurs, they are only active by day and seldom come down to the ground. How they manage to avoid damaging their soft, leathery hands and feet is a mystery. Shifakas live in extended families, with a number of adults of both sexes caring together for their communal young. They have a complex set of calls where different sounds represent danger from the ground and from the air. Only ring-tailed lemurs live mainly on the ground. Living in tribes of about 15 individuals, they have an even more complex set of signals. They communicate with their tails, using them not only as flags, but as a way of spreading messages through the air. Rubbing them with scent from glands on their wrists, they wag them towards an opponent in what's known as a stink fight. In ring-tailed society, females are dominant to males. They spend their lives in the group in which they were born, while males move from one group to another. Glands under the tail also produce scent, which is used to mark the tribe's boundaries. Ringtails check branches and tree trunks periodically for scent markings and rub the glands under their tail against the bark. On the African mainland, primate evolution took a different but parallel course. Baboons have evolved the same tribal way of life as the ringtail lemurs, living like them more on the ground than in the trees. But baboon society is much more complex. The social structure is maintained not by subtle sense, but by facial and vocal signals. When two tribes meet at their common boundary, the conflict is organized and ritualized. Females and young keep well out of the way, leaving the males to do the fighting. Dominant males confront each other and make ritualized displays of aggression or submission. As abruptly as it began, the fight is over. Honor on both sides is satisfied, and the tribes resume their placid daily routine. Baboons eat almost anything, from roots and shoots to insects. They even eat meat, gazelles and goats, which they hunt in organized parties. The senior males and dominant females are saluted politely by their juniors, who present themselves for inspection as they pass. As society gets more complex, there is more for youngsters to learn. Young primates have a much longer period of dependency upon adults than most other mammals. They need to be educated. Young baboons are adventurous and inquisitive, especially the males. They learn by trial and error, supervised by a watchful mother. The males will leave the tribe when they grow up. Adult baboons prevent youngsters from eating unfamiliar food, but often curious juveniles discover new food items which gradually become incorporated in the entire troop's diet. The need to find a varied diet demands cooperation between individuals as well as intelligence. She continues to suckle her infant until the next one is born, often as long as 2 years later. The mother-daughter bond lasts throughout adulthood, and they often spend time grooming each other. But from time to time, a mother has to discipline her more unruly older offspring if they try to take liberties. Because of their adaptability, baboons have colonized an amazing range of habitats in Africa, from deep forest to open savanna. One habitat they have not invaded is above the snowline. But a closely related group of primates has mastered even this unpromising environment. Macaques are members of the same family as baboons, but their home is in Asia, not Africa. Japanese macaques are among the most northerly monkeys in the world. Their habitat demands especially adaptable behavior and intelligence. They forage for food in groups, feeding mainly on bark, with a few shoots and dormant leaf buds. They watch each other, so that individuals learn from the experience of the group. They used to spend the winter lower in the valleys, where the weather is milder. But pressure from the human population forced them to stay in the hills, even in the harshest of weather. Fruits, shoots and insects are so scarce during the winter in temperate regions that this may explain why most primates are found only in the tropics. But the macaques are intelligent enough to find a wide variety of food even in these desperate conditions. Grass roots and corms are a particularly nutritious food source, buried under the snow. They nibble at the snow occasionally. There is no free water to drink. A vital adaptation to the cold is a thick winter coat, which insulates the macaques from the worst of the weather. Mothers help their young, but despite their skills at finding food, there is barely enough nourishment to keep them warm in these bleak winter months. The macaques have discovered an ingenious way of reducing the amount of food they need to keep warm, that beats even a warm fur coat. Dotted among the mountains are volcanic hot springs, where they can take long, leisurely baths. This is a perfect example of how curiosity and experimentation has allowed the primates, including ourselves, to overcome the rigors of new or unsuitable environments. Among all primates, overcrowding can give rise to tension. The macaques, like their relations elsewhere, deflect the aggression by grooming each other. Basking in clouds of steam, they can survive the winter in relative luxury, exploiting geothermal heat while all around them the snow piles high. This region of volcanic activity extends south like a thread, connecting Japan to the Indonesian archipelago. These volcanic islands are home to a primate which bridges the gap between monkeys and the higher apes, including ourselves. the link between the monkeys and the higher apes is a group known as the lesser apes. Among them, the siamang, a type of gibbon. It lives high in the trees of the Malay Peninsula and Sumatra, rarely coming to the ground. The siamang is the largest member of the gibbon family. A large male can weigh up to 12 kilos. As the primates began to increase in size, they began to swing beneath the branches instead of balancing on top. The gibbons are absolute masters of the art. Coming to a river to drink, they avoid plunging in among the waterborne predators. Instead, they drink as they dangle, scooping up water with one hand. Like all primates, they have opposable thumbs. Without them, they could not maintain the grip on thin twigs. From the lemurs of Madagascar all the way up the primate line, this type of hand opened possibilities closed to other animals. Each pair of siamangs occupies a tree-top territory. From its center, in the early morning, they sing a duet. The singing spaces out pairs in the forest and also helps to strengthen the bond between the pair. The acrobatic display of a siamang demonstrates its strength and ability to a potential mate, but it also contains an element of play and sheer exuberance. The siamang's shoulders are very mobile, and its arms are longer than the length of its body and legs combined. The hands form hooks from which to swing from one branch to the next, a form of movement called brachiation. They have to travel widely around their 40-hectare territory, visiting places where they have learned that a particular fruit crop will be ready to eat. Siamangs are monogamous, and the lifelong bond between male and female is very close. They spend most of their time in each other's company, avoiding other groups in the forest. The pair move together among the branches, exploring and learning the conditions of the trees they pass. It will take several years to pass this accumulated knowledge to their young. In Sumatra and nearby Borneo, the orangutan, the shy man of the forest, has taken the tree-living habit to its limit. Although they are competent climbers, they are much heavier than the gibbons. A mature male can weigh 90 kilos. A 50-kilogram mother, carrying her baby, can hang confidently by one foot from a slender branch. She's able to use her toes to grip in the same way as we use our thumbs. This ability is essential when both hands are needed to gather food. Orangs have none of the natural grace of the siamangs. Sometimes branches break under their weight and they are unable to leap from one tree to the next. Orangs have solved the problem in an ingenious way, using the natural spring of a sapling to swing backwards and forwards until they gain the momentum needed to reach a handhold. They don't always succeed. Lianas make an easier pathway through the trees. Examination of orang skeletons reveals that many have broken their bones during the course of their life. Orangutans are gentle creatures, especially when they are young. This has caused problems with their human relatives. The charm of a young orang makes it a very attractive pet. These youngsters are survivors of just such an experience. At a rehabilitation center in Sumatra, they are fed and looked after until they are ready to be released back into the forest. They're orphans, deprived of adult orang company and, more important, education. Their mothers were killed so that they could be captured. Now they have outgrown the cuddly stage and their human keepers have become bored or afraid of them. The lucky ones find the chance of a new life here at the center. The humanoid appearance of orangutans indicates that they are quite close to us in the family tree. Many of their gestures and some of their bad habits are surprisingly familiar to us. They diverged from the ancestral line relatively recently, just before the gorillas and the chimpanzees. A party of them sharing a durian fruit could easily be a group of children at a picnic. In the wild, orangs often spend an entire day feasting on a fruiting fig tree. The fruits of the Indonesian rainforest are varied. Durians, jackfruit, lychees, mangoes and figs. Occasionally, they will eat insects and birds' eggs. Though not quite as dexterous as humans, orangs are well equipped to manipulate their environment, handling and investigating everything around them. In the rainy season, their natural inventiveness is brought into service to find ways of keeping dry. In the wild, orangs build a nest out of vegetation in the crown of a tree for shelter every night. Young animals learn from their elders, adapting their techniques to take advantage of whatever they can find around them in the forest. In the rehabilitation center, shelter is even more sophisticated. Climbing is an inborn skill, but it needs practice. For young orangs, practice is evidently a pleasure, and the forest is a huge natural gymnasium. The young orangs in the rehabilitation center have become accustomed to the presence of humans and show no fear of the camera. The front of the lens is like a mirror. Behavior like this draws humans to the primates as to no other animals. We see ourselves reflected in their faces. Mature male orangs are twice the size of the female and develop fleshy cheek flanges. In the wild, they mostly lead a solitary life, avoiding other males. Females usually move through the forest with their offspring. In Indonesia, the rainforests are still being felled. Orangutans are being driven from their homes by the relentless advance of humanity. Young orangs were taken out of the forest to supply a demand for the pet trade. Tree fellers working in the forest soon learned that every young orang they could catch would be worth a month's wages. The gentle apes had no defense except to drop branches on their tormentors. On average, for every young orang removed alive from the forest, 12 others will die. Thousands have been sacrificed to supply the trade, in spite of the fact that it is now illegal to own or sell one in Indonesia or Malaysia. The orangutans are losing the last of their forest habitat outside national parks. When we move to Africa, the cradle of the human race, things are no better for our close relative, the gorilla. All gorillas live in a narrow band of forest stretching across equatorial Africa, and all these forests are under threat. These eastern lowland gorillas live in family groups ruled by a senior male. Their diet is very varied and seasonal. Like other primates, they need intelligence to learn where and when to find food, and how to exploit a good supply. The family wanders through the forest, feeding together and moving on. They never stay long enough in one place to strip out all the food plants. They don't need to move far in one day to find food. It's growing all around them. They travel too slowly to patrol the boundaries of their range, so they don't defend any territories. Each gorilla group may overlap with others. The big silver-backed male in charge of this family group takes special care where a road crosses their route. Roads can mean danger from human hunters, so he ushers the family across under his watchful eye. The black-backed junior males take their share of responsibility, but the silverback is overall leader of the group. He leads them on at a steady pace of about 3 kilometers per hour to the next feeding area. The group rests regularly along the way for the sake of its younger members. The rarest gorillas of all, the mountain gorillas, live in the remote mountains of Rwanda and Zaire. The male gorilla is much larger than the female because he has to compete with other males for control of the females in his harem. These conflicts are seldom violent, usually consisting of ritualized chest beating and charges. Young gorillas use up their energy by sparring under the gaze of their elders. Mornings and evenings are spent exploring and feeding, with a siesta in the middle of the day. Subordinate members of the group take their lead from the silverback. When he feeds, they all feed. When he moves on, they all follow. The group usually consists of a silverback male, 3 adult females, and their offspring, including blackback subadult males. Young males are tolerated until they reach sexual maturity, when they leave the group and lead a solitary life before setting up a harem on their own. Gorillas feed mainly on leaves and stems rather than fruits. As leaves are always in plentiful supply, they can afford to move around in a large party and feed together. The care they take of the youngsters in the group is returned by evident trust and affection. Young gorillas taste all the plants they come across in the forest, learning their life's diet by trial and error. Like baboons, they sometimes change the life of the group by introducing their more conservative parents to new foods. With supple fingers and opposable thumbs, they can reach the tenderest and tastiest parts of any plant. These hands, dried and pickled, are sold by poachers to tourists as souvenirs. When the morning's feeding is over, the gorilla family settles down, making comfortable nests for their siesta. When the family is at rest, their lazy rolling and cuddling, as well as the squabbling youngsters, make the gorillas seem even more like humans. This is why, to most people, killing them for any purpose seems so like murder. There is one other group of primates, the chimpanzees, which are even more closely related to ourselves. In a small surviving patch of forest on an island in West Africa, scientists have been studying their closest relatives in the animal kingdom, a community of chimpanzees. This is one of the last places where their behavior is almost entirely unaffected by humans. Although they are expert climbers, the chimps live mostly on the ground, climbing the trees mainly in search of fruit. Like baboons, chimps also eat meat, cooperating to hunt monkeys, pigs, and young antelope. Like gorillas, they know their part of the forest in great detail. Each community has its own territory, which it patrols regularly, watching for intruders and checking on the state of the food plots. As each fruit tree ripens, the chimps make use of it. But this particular community has developed a skill not shared by any other group of chimpanzees. It arose as an ingenious solution to an awkward problem. Every year the forest produces an abundance of nuts, but they are encased in hard shells, proof against the strongest teeth. The chimps have found the answer. They collect the nuts from the forest floor and take them to a clearing where they have assembled the tools they need. Using a convenient tree stump as an anvil, they crack the nuts with rocks chosen for the purpose. It's nourishing food, full of fat and protein, available to the chimps only because of their dexterity and intelligence. The technique is passed down from mother to child by demonstration and imitation. To achieve this degree of skill can take as much as 6 years' practice. Our fascination with chimpanzees is enhanced by the discovery that they share with humans 98.4% of their genes. They are more closely related to us than they are to gorillas. Their modes of greeting and their facial expressions are readily recognizable. Even their family structure is not entirely alien. They live in cooperative groups, several mothers and their children, led by a senior male to whom all the others defer. Here, at Monkey World in Dorset, the nursery pen attracts great attention. It's where the orphans go until they are big enough to join the hurly-burly of the adult groups. Pepper is their universal aunt. She arrived in Dorset only a year ago, after a period as a beach chimp. But she knows some of the other orphans because she met them at the halfway house in Spain, where they were weaned off the Valium their owners had used to keep them under control. Already, she is the leader of this little group.
He don't like them up there, does he?
Humans are fascinated by chimpanzees, perhaps because we recognize so many of our own gestures and expressions in their behavior. At Monkey World, the young chimps stare equally curiously at their human visitors. Like all great apes, the chimp's snub nose reveals that they have lost smell as the dominant sense, and that, like us, sight, sound and touch are by far the most important senses. They have ways of attracting attention if they think they're being ignored.
See what's going on in there.
Visiting children need to explore the discovery that they are nearly as agile as their newfound cousins, as well as sharing most of their genes and all of their curiosity. In the nursery, this young chimp is already finding a use for small stones. The young chimps will eventually graduate from the nursery to one of the senior communities. In the oldest group, Paddy is the dominant male. He survived 5 years as a beach chimp before being rescued, and took 4 years to become dehumanized and integrated into the group of 8, which he now rules with a firm hand. These chimps have been together for 7 years. They live exactly as if they were in the wild, augmenting their supplied diet with snakes and rabbits, which they hunt as a team. The youngest members of Monkey World were born at Windsor Safari Park just before it closed. Here they will grow up into a community which, while it is not completely natural, is protected and safe, and above all, a proper chimpanzee society. Supported by their close relatives at the top of the family tree, they might be the last generation of chimpanzees to live in captivity.